Welcome back to the Explanation Pro. Today I'll recap a war drama film called The Zookeeper's Wife. Spoilers incoming. During the summer of 1939 in Warsaw, Poland, just before World War II, a woman named Antonina awakens early to prepare for the opening of the Warsaw Zoo, one of the largest European zoos owned by her husband, Dr. Jan Zabinski. After greeting the caretaker, they open the gates and let all the visitors inside. She then gets on her bicycle to do her usual rounds, observing each animal enclosure while also delighted to see the patrons' amusement with all the attractions. After checking in on some animals, she helps Jen shovel hay into a truck. That night, the couple host a party for some elite socialites, including German zoo owner Dr. Lutz Heck, head of the Berlin Zoo, Adolf Hitler's chief zoologist, and Jan's professional rival. Antonina tries to help serve the guests, only to be insulted by Wanda Englert, looking down on her for being a zookeeper's wife. Fortunately, Lutz comes to her defense by recognizing her accomplishments. As she is about to play the piano to entertain everyone, her son Rhys hurriedly alerts her about an elephant, Kasia, needing medical attention. She returns to its enclosure as the elephant's infant has difficulty breathing. Antonina manages to rescue the creature, much to the delight of all the partygoers, including Heck, who witnessed her exceptional efforts. Jan continues to be impressed with his wife, always taking the initiative for the welfare of the zoo. The following morning, after Antonina buys her son some pencils, she notices a number of citizens dragging along the belongings like pack mules, indicating an evacuation. She discusses this with her husband at night, prodding a troubled Jan to tell her to evacuate the city with risk to Zalacy due to the imminent danger of Adolf Hitler's Nazi regime. Antonina refuses to go along with this plan because it will be difficult for her and her son to live a normal life on the run. It is September 1, 1939. Jan's fears come to fruition as the aerial bombardment of Warsaw and the invasion of Poland commences. Bombs damage the Warsaw Zoo and kill most of the animals, prompting Antonina and her son Rhys to escape. To her horror, the Polish army arrives, with some men shooting prized elephants. As the mother and son reach the train platform along with other civilians, they are informed that no trains will be serviceable due to the ongoing war. Suddenly, her husband comes through the crowd to see them, and they head back to their zoo to find out what's left of it. Though some animals survive, the staff gathers the rest of the dead ones and buries them. Some soldiers from the Polish army help fix the zoo, as a German convoy takes over to make it an armory. While this continues, Antonina listens to a radio announcement informing Poland to surrender quietly and honorably. As they rest for the night, Jan offers his sentiments over the war, telling his wife the Jews are to be persecuted. The following day, Heck visits the zoo while Jan is away and calls for Antonina. As Hitler's chief zoologist, he is requested to head the Warsaw Zoo, with all their assets now liquidated. He offers protection for Antonina's prized animals, for them to be housed in Berlin temporarily. She tells Jan about this, but her husband is understandably upset, knowing that Hitler will now have authority over them. The next morning, Heck returns to load some of the animals and prepare them for transport as he thanks the couple for their cooperation. Unfortunately, as winter approaches, Heck, accompanied by German soldiers, start killing the remaining animals in the zoo, as witnessed by both Antonina and Jerzy, another caretaker. He claims that the animals will not endure the current conditions in the zoo, so he plans to stuff and mount some of them as trophies. Though saddening to witness Heck's brutality, Antonina is powerless to do anything. A forced evacuation takes place a year later in October. Jewish people from around the country were ordered to move to a designated area known in history as the Warsaw Ghetto. As evening falls, two of the couple's closest friends, Simon Tenenbaum and Magda Gross, discuss their horrible treatment at the hands of the German soldiers even though they have no choice but to follow their orders. Simon asks Jan for a favor, entrusting him with his insect collection for safekeeping while he is away. Later in the basement, Antonina discusses the possibility of helping shelter Magda in their storeroom. Still, her husband is against this, as helping even one Jewish person may jeopardize them with the Germans. She urges him to reconsider, so the following day, the couple carefully instructs Magda on how to behave while she hides in their house until the war ends. While having dinner in the evening, Jan updates Magda about her husband, Maurice Frankel's, situation in the ghetto, practicing law. Surprisingly, he also discloses information from his close contacts that they want to turn the zoo into a temporary safe haven for Jews as the war continues. Initially rejecting the idea, Antonina talks about the plan with her husband while they take an evening stroll. To keep this away from the Germans' prying eyes, they must secure a permit to continue the zoo's operation. The next day, the couple goes to the office of Heck, proposing to turn the abandoned zoo into a pig farm, not only to feed the occupying forces but also secretly hoping to sneak people out of the ghetto. The distinguished zoologist is enthused by this idea, mostly because he wants to build a new site for a breeding program to revive 300-year-old bovines called the aurochs as a symbol of the Reich. Despite Jan's doubts over his experiments, he agrees with the couple's proposition. Sometime after, loads of swine arrive at the zoo, but the couple is surprised to see a truckload of Heck's bison for the breeding program. The zoologist explains that performing his experiments in the zoo will give his animals a chance to grow in a natural habitat. Though this is a little setback in their plan, Antonina tells Jan she will work with Heck to keep him occupied. The following day, her husband and son drive the truck to the ghetto to collect pig slop. Upon entering, he is moved with compassion, seeing the awful situation the Germans have placed the Jews in. Along the way, he witnesses soldiers take advantage of a young girl as they take her away from the streets. He confides with Morrissey, as he delivers him pig meat, about the treatment of Nazis towards their people. He later tries to convince Janusz Korczak, a Jewish doctor, to flee with him in his truck, only for the doctor to decline for the sake of the children left in the ghetto. Eventually, as he loads his truck with leftovers, he rescues some young Jewish men willing to hide inside, along with the sexually assaulted young girl, Ursula, he saw earlier. The guards let him pass at the gate, seeing nothing out of the ordinary with his cargo. Jan returns at night to the zoo and lets the boys out, and instructs them to spend the night in the tunnel and be taken outside Warsaw just before the patrols arrive in the morning. Meanwhile, Antonina takes the bleeding and traumatized young girl to a hay pen to get cleaned up. She takes a particular interest in her, treating her the same way she would treat a frightened animal. Though she does not speak to her, she spends the rest of the night looking after her as she heals up. As the patrols return at dawn, Antonina reveals to Ursula that she used to live a life always on the run as a war refugee. To calm her, she gives her a bunny that she immediately attaches to. The rescue operation continues through the winter season. As more Jewish refugees arrive in their houses, Antonina informs them of a signaling tactic they must remember. If she plays the piano late at night, it is safe to come out of hiding, otherwise, they must hide if they hear her play in the daytime. As everyone enjoys something to eat and drink while Antonina plays, Ursula, in the basement, decides to use Rissa's colored pencils to draw something. The next morning, Antonina urges the cook to prepare 2 batches of soup so that she can secretly feed her guests in their hiding spot. She later entertains Heck, who is enthusiastic about the progress of his bison through the breeding program. Sensing her disinterest, he excuses to leave but stops at the doorway, looking infatuated with Antonina. Suddenly, one of the refugees' children coughs loudly, so she tries to distract Heck by charming him, feigning interest so that he will not suspect anything unusual. He leaves astonished by the actions. Another part of their operation comes to light inside the kitchen of a bakery, as passports are secretly being printed to change the refugees' Jewish identity. On this particular day, Mrs. Asser gets to leave Warsaw, so they change her hairstyle and color to more befitting of an upper-class woman. She is then transported out of the zoo, posing as a cousin of Antonina. Some time afterward, Ursula draws on the walls while letting some of the kids play with her pet rabbit. She finds the urge to speak, introducing herself to them while also saying she named the rabbit after her brother, Pyotr. Antonina is touched by her openness and explains that her name means she-bear. This gives the young girl enough confidence to come upstairs and join everyone in the den while Antonina plays the piano. A new day arrives as Antonina and the refugees enjoy their free time drawing on the walls with the children. Suddenly, Heck stops by, informing her that the bison is ready to mate with a female, so they head out for her to guide the animals in the mating process. Afterward, while washing, Heck becomes flirtatious, much to Jan's dismay, as he witnesses them have a moment. Later, as he and his family eat supper, a man knocks on their door, introducing himself as Dr. Ziegler, head of the Ghetto Labor Bureau. He shows interest in seeing the insect collection of Simon while also informing he passed away recently due to an ulcer attack. As he inspects the glass display, the doctor hints at his knowledge of the couple's operation and that he will provide them with official papers to let the Jewish people leave the ghetto. This incredible act of goodwill allows Jan to bring some Jews out inconspicuously and legally. A mother and daughter who had recently been rescued feel grateful to Antonina and her husband that they give her a keepsake hairpin. Eventually, Jan slips Morrissey past the ghetto security as he poses as an assistant. Later, Magda is thrilled to have her husband back, as she embraces him upon his return. At first, Morrissey worries, for he put his colleagues' lives at risk with him in their home, only to break down seeing his fellow Jews gather in the den to welcome him. That evening, Jan lingers over Heck's apparent feelings for his wife, revealing his jealousy of Antonina. She tries to ease his mind, but he leaves abruptly. In the morning, she cries in her bedroom until she is comforted by Maurice. Unfortunately, the cook walks in accidentally and sees their encounter but excuses herself to leave. Fearing she might have misconstrued the situation, Antonina fires her. Still, instead of feeling mad about it, the cook shows her gratitude for the couple's hospitality, letting her cook for as long as she needs to. In August 1942, Germans began transporting Jews to death camps. At a loading station, Jan tries to convince Dr. Korczak once more to escape with him, but he declines to be with the children. He has no choice but to help load children into the cattle cars bound for the death camps. Returning to the zoo, he sees his wife and Heck taking care of a newborn calf when the latter insults him for being a pig farmer. A rift begins in their relationship as he confronts Antonina about Heck's fondness for her. She reasons with him that a zoologist is a man of power, and he frightens her knowing he can have their family executed if their operation is discovered. They passionately make love afterward to ease each other's feelings. Sometime in April 1943, the mother and daughter disguised as Aryans by Antonina is discovered and executed outside their boarding house. Several months later, after the failed uprising, the Zabinskis and refugees listen to a radio broadcast informing them that the Germans have liquidated the ghetto on Hitler's birthday, which is also the first night of Jewish Passover. While the Jews mournfully celebrate a secret Passover Seder in the Zabinskis' house, the Germans burn down the ghetto. Jan decides to join the Warsaw Uprising, getting a new passport at the bakery, only to put the establishment in jeopardy when Heck follows a lead and discovers a stamp on the dough table. He proceeds to burn down the bakery. As he returns to the zoo, he questions Riss about his parents' whereabouts but cannot get any information. In growing suspicion and rage, Heck pins the Nazi cross onto the boy's shirt, goading him to say, "Heil Hitler." As he leaves, Rizzard cries out, "Hitler is kaput." Later on, Antonina gives birth to a baby girl, Teresa. Afterward, during the Polish uprising, Jan is shot with a bullet to his neck and captured, presumed dead. In January 1945, as Soviet troops forced the Germans to retreat, the evacuation of Warsaw began. Desperate to know her husband's whereabouts, Antonina goes to the Polish army headquarters to seek Heck's help. When the zoologist asks what he will get in return, she begins to undress, though she obviously cannot bear him. Increasingly sure of her deceit, he almost rapes her, and she realizes she has had enough, confessing her disgusts. After all this time, Heck realizes how much she has lied to him. Calling for his car to go to the zoo, Antonina races home and helps all the Jews escape just as the zoologist arrives. Magda takes baby Teresa with her, but Riss insists on staying, so Antonina hides him. Heck enters the house in a fury, discovering the basement drawings, stars of David, dates, and the Jews drawn with animal faces. When he finds Riss, he chases him through the animal tunnels, catching him at gunpoint. Locking Antonina in a cage, he ignores her pleas as he drags the boy out of eyesight. When a shot rings out, she collapses in grief. A moment later, Heck walks back to his car, leaving the zoo for good. The boy returns to her side, unharmed. The two join the march out of Warsaw. Eventually, the Polish city began rebuilding 4 months after the Nazi regime surrendered. By this time, Antonina and the children return to the damaged zoo, along with Jerzyk. They make the best of their plight, feeling lucky to have the zoo back for them to take care of again. Fortunately, as Antonina prepares for a meal one day, she sees Jan return home, having survived the prison camp. The couple reunites in tears, with the zookeeper finally happy to come back to his zoo and resume his life with his family. Sometime later, they paint stars of David on all the cages in the zoo. In total, the Zabinskis saved 300 Jews. Lutz Heck's zoo in Berlin was destroyed by Allied bombings, so he was never able to recreate the extinct aurochs. Later on, the Zabinskis was recognized by Israel for their righteous acts and defiance against the Germans. Eventually, they rebuilt the present-day Warsaw Zoological Garden. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and also subscribe my channel for more videos like this. See you in the next video.